Are you wanting or a little bit tempted to get injectables, but you are very afraid of this kind of look? I hear you. And many women feel afraid to take that step and to find a way of doing it naturally. So today I'm going to be having the most amazing guest on, Dr. Margot Wishar, and I see she's here already. So Margot, fantastic. She sent me the request and I can go ahead and let her into the room.
Okay, it just takes a second. Sometimes we have a little bit of a challenge with this kind of thing. Yay!
Hey, Tracy.
Hey, Dr. Margot, how are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
It's so wonderful to have you here. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. I can see there's already some excited people going, yes, I want to hear about injectables, but not like this.
No, definitely not like that.
So, Margot, I mean, I've known you for quite some time. And I just want to be completely upfront with people and say that I have not had injectables. But
She
if
hasn't. Not with
I
me.
haven't, and you know, because I've been in the room shooting and filming and directing you while you've been doing it. But I have to say that if I was going to do it, I would come to you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're the real deal. So today
Aw.
you're going to give us some tips on how to, A, have it done safely, because I think many women are nervous about that, especially because of the COVID vaccine affecting injectables, and then also how to make it look natural so you don't look like you've had work done.
Absolutely. So, I mean, we've all heard, well, a lot of us have heard about the news about COVID vaccines and injectables. And there were reports that people who had had injectables and then went on to get their vaccines had some local swelling in the areas where they had been injected. And all of these were able to be treated. So it was not a permanent situation. And so, you know, there was a lot of talk in the news and amongst dermatologists and patients about what to do. I have to say, in my own practice where I do injectables, you know, day in, day out,
Yes.
I really don't feel like I've seen that occur. And certainly, you know, in my area, about 60% of adults now have gotten the vaccine. So, you know,
Yes.
I look at this as a known possible complication that is treatable. And, you know, were I to see somebody who had gotten an injectable and a vaccine and, you know, had some swelling there, you know, I would know what to do to rectify that.
Yes, yes. And so, Margot, does that have anything to do with the kind of injectables that you're having, or who is administering the injectables?
I don't think the COVID issue has to do with who is administering them. I think that we know that when you have any kind of injectable and you have some kind of inflammatory condition, and that would mean a vaccine, a cold, dental work, even something that kind of stimulates your body's inflammation, that this can happen. So I think it's
Oh,
just because of, you know, the widespread number of people who are becoming vaccinated all at once, all over the world, you know,
yes,
that we're seeing this happen in enough frequency that it's become a thing. But it basically, you know, it has happened for many years in many situations, and this is really no different. It's just much more widespread all at once.
yes, I get that. That makes a lot of sense because everybody's getting, you know, so many of us are getting vaccinated. And so obviously we're going to see a much bigger perspective, you know, all at the same time, in fact.
Yes, yes,
So that
pretty
makes
much.
a big difference.
Yes, all at the same time. So
So,
yeah,
Margot, okay, go ahead.
no.
So now let's talk about, you know, the fear that women have, I mean, including me. So listen, and I've seen it done, and I was like, woo!
Yeah.
Okay, let me get some,
Don't give
you
away
know,
the secrets.
let me get some air. I mean, it's an interesting, you know, but it didn't. It was interesting because the women who were having the injectables when I was watching it being done, they weren't in pain, which was surprising to me.
No, I think that the right technique can really, really minimize pain. You know, it's a little tiny needle prick, so it, you know, unless you're seriously needle phobic, we can get you through it without a lot of discomfort. I think the fear rightly so, comes from the images that we are bombarded with on social media and other forms of media of people who have had these things done in an inappropriate way, so that they're very, very visible and very, very, you really looking at somebody and saying they're distorted. And
Yes.
so, I look at the things that we have, and we can talk about Botox and fillers and lasers and everything. They're all paints in the paint box, and it's how you use them that is going to produce a pleasing, natural result. And that is what comes from years of training, understanding the science, understanding the differences, understanding people and their anatomy and what makes one person's face looks different than another, and also then kind of taking it in a whole context of who you are, what your lifestyle is, what your tolerance is, how fast you want to see changes. I mean, these are all things that I really kind of spend a lot of time getting to know my patients about, because everybody's answer is going to be slightly different,
Yes.
And COVID has, given us a couple of different challenges that we didn't have before, and also some unique, maybe even bonuses, believe it or not. So one of them is that our schedules have been pretty empty for the last year and a half. So when I would consult with patients and say, look, you could use this procedure that might require a week of downtime. In the past, it was, well, I have this event and I have a wedding and I have work and I have a trip. Well, now it was sort of like, great, let's go for it. Because, I have all the time in the world.
Free time.
Exactly. So that's been one kind of really interesting difference. And then I think the second one is honestly masking. And it was I'll tell you a funny anecdote. So right before we closed last year because of COVID, I had just purchased a whole bunch of lip filler because we were going into the spring and that's when people wanted to do it. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have this on my shelf. It's going to, it's going to expire at some point. I'm never going to use it. People are walking around with masks on all the time. Well, once we were able to reopen, once it was safe to do so, people were coming in right and left to have their lips treated because they're like, well, if there's a little swelling in the beginning, I'll just keep my mask on. I've done more lips in the last year.
I'm immune compromised. Like,
Yeah.
I have to keep it on.
Exactly. It might be something even we use in the future, and you have something done, you'll tell your friends and family, I have a little sore throat. I just didn't want anybody to get sick, Meanwhile, you're behind the mask,
Or you're staying home because maybe you have a little bit of a sore throat and you don't want to possibly infect anybody. So you
it's
have
a
to
public
cancel
health
your
issue. Exactly. So, there are kind of some interesting things that we've all adapted to and may actually be useful in the future. We'll see.
Margot, let's talk a little bit about the shame that some women have. I haven't, at this stage of my life, I've chosen not to have injectables. I can't say that I'll never choose to because, nobody really knows how they're going to feel as we start aging and going through different seasons of our lives. But one of the things that I'm a little trepidatious about is when women are denying that they've had any injectables done or any work done of any kind. And why there's two reasons why that concerns me. First of all, is that when there is secrecy, there is often shame, and shame just grows in the shadows. And I think that concerns me. And then also, when there's this pretense around, oh, I just look so great because I live a healthy lifestyle, and it sets women up for a very unrealistic expectation. Well, if I eat right and I drink water and I'm fit and healthy, then I'm going to look like she does. And why don't I? So can you speak a little bit about that kind of secrecy?
Yeah, I think that's a really fascinating thing. I think part of it might be generational because I think that the younger generation growing up with all these things being so widespread looks at them as a tool to help them kind of stay the way they are, help them maintain their appearance rather than change their appearance, although there are some that do that. And, you know, I think that when women were doing things to please other people in their lives, whether it's, you know, thinking that they had to look a certain way to get ahead at work or to be appealing to their mate or whatever, then it became this sort of, you know, secretive thing that, you know, we didn't want anybody to know that I needed this help in order to feel more confident. I do feel like there's still some of that attitude around. I mean, I certainly hear, you know, I don't want my husband to know, he'll be so angry. And I'm thinking, why? You know, I mean, maybe because I'm spending money that I shouldn't be or something. And that could be one of those things, but often it's not about that. Often it's about, he'll be angry that I'm doing something to alter my appearance. And, you know, I think that we put it in the context that age is altering our appearance. You know, we don't have to do anything. The passage of time is going to change our appearance. And there are certain things that are intrinsic to everybody. And, you know, genetics might, you know, Tracy, you're beautiful and you haven't had anything done and you have good genes. And I'm sure that if you lined up a bunch of other women who are the same age as you, they might not have as good, you know, facial structure as you do. And that's just, you won the lottery.
Thank you, Marga.
And, but, you know, there is a certain programmatic change that happens as you age, whether or not, you know, you're wearing your sunscreen or using retin-A or doing all those other things. There are certain things that our behavior does affect. And so in that regard, you know, there are changes in our appearance that are our own fault, you know.
Yes.
But there are certain things that happen no matter what you do, and no matter how healthy a lifestyle you lead. And so I try and put it in the context of good work is about restoring what was naturally present before. And if you bring back the things that were naturally present, you're going to look like yourself. You're not going to look like some kind of distortion of your appearance. And, you know, I've seen it over and over. I mean, I have patients who will look in the mirror after they're treated and burst into tears because this is how they were seeing themselves before age had taken, you know, its toll. And now that they can feel like their old self again and something that they felt was unattainable, they're really overwhelmed and overcome. And honestly, that's something that makes me feel really good about the kind of work we do, because it is giving people back that confidence.
Yes. And you know, Margot, I think it's a very interesting conversation to have, because where would we draw the line, right? Because as women, many of us color our hair. I mean, this is my natural color, but you know, there's probably going to come a time when I am going to want to, and I wouldn't even think twice about doing that or feeling shameful about that. We do put on makeup, we do use skincare products, we do a whole bunch of things. And yet when it comes to this, we seem to be very kind of like, oh, you know, I don't want anyone to know I'm doing this. But what I'm hearing from you is really it's the way we think of it, right?
Right. I think it's a context that we put it in, because as you said, all of the elements that you mentioned, your clothing choices, your hair choices, your makeup choices, is how you want to be perceived by the world. That's how, that is the image, the persona that you want to project into the world. And if your face does not match that persona, you should be able to use the tools that we have developed over, you know, many decades now, in order to get to, you know, back to where you feel very comfortable about the way that you appear to others. And that doesn't, you know, it can mean different things to different people. I mean, there are people who I see who are on the younger side, and their eyes are very hooded. They have a lot of bulging underneath their eyes, you know, calling it, you know, the bags. And you know, they will go for a blepharoplasty, which is an eye surgery that I don't do. That's a plastic surgeon, and look fantastic and they're young enough, they're out there, that everything now looks kind of much more in sync with how they want to project themselves. So why should you not take advantage of that if you can? So I think
And
it's
why should you
reframing it.
feel shame? And why should you feel shame around that? And I think that's the thing, is that I would love to see women start to have more open conversations about these things, so that there isn't, the shadow type of thing. Because why do we need to be, why do we need to be ashamed of doing what we can to make ourselves look, like you say, to preserve what we have to an extent?
I think we have to own that we want to look attractive. Being attractive in whatever way you define it, not by some kind of, absolute standard, makes you feel better. It makes you engage with other people more. You feel better about yourself. You're going to be more social. And doing these things for yourself does allow you to live the life that you want to live. Yeah. So I think we have to reframe that. Maybe some people will never come around to that. They always want to keep it from their husband or their best friend or so forth. But I do think the younger generation, especially now, is coming up saying, look, I'm going to use what I can to keep it, as nice as I look today.
Yeah. So tell us, Margot, what are the tips? Because I do look at pictures on social media and that kind of thing, and I find it very scary. This very altered kind of, and I'm like, oh, I would not want to look like that. So how do you make it look natural?
So, I get that question from patients all the time, especially they come in, they want to do something, and then we start talking about it. They're like, but I don't want to look like I have, balls in my face or whatever. And I'm like, look, somebody who is well trained and has been doing this a long time has an understanding of anatomy, has an understanding of what's going on underneath your skin that is missing, that is causing these lines or sagging to form, that the reason that you're here. And I often tell patients, I'm treating the cause of the line, not the line itself. Because let's just take nasolabial folds, So this is an area that a lot of people come in about. Well, these folds are caused by the cheek itself starting to lose volume and the cheek kind of falling in this direction. So if you were just to put a lot of filler around somebody's mouth, you would be accentuating an area that's never really been accentuated. And that's going to throw off the symmetry of their face. Whereas if you address the cheek area where that volume came from, you're lifting the lines back to where they belong, and you're doing it in an anatomically consistent way. Oftentimes, if somebody can bring me a picture from 10, 15, 20 years ago, a good face-on portrait, you can really see where you've lost that volume. And, obviously it happens very, very gradually over many, many years. So it's not the type of thing you're waking up one morning and going, oh my gosh, look at all that. But if you dial back time to, a decade ago or more, you're going to really see the changes.
That's amazing. So it sounds like what you're saying is that when you're choosing somebody that you're going to go to, make sure that they're a professional, because you could just go and say, oh, I don't like these lines. And they go, okay, well, let's then do the injectables there, but it's in the wrong place and it's not going to get you the look that you want.
Absolutely. In our current society, to become a quote unquote an injector, does not require a lot of training. And so it is up to the person now seeking out services to really investigate the person who will be treating them. I, of course, from my bias, would suggest a core specialist. That would be dermatology, plastic surgery, ENT, or facial surgery, and somebody who has done a lot of these treatments in the past. So, that's where you're going to get the most sophisticated approach. When new injectors are trained, they're often trained in a very kind of cookie cutter way, inject here, here, here. And, that is going to oversimplify what really is the challenge when you're dealing with all kinds of patients at all different ages who have all different kinds of needs. So I think it really, really, you're dependent on the knowledge and expertise of the person who is treating you.
Yes.
And that makes all the difference.
Yeah. And so, Margot, because I see, because I live in New York City and I walk around, okay, now, not so much now, but now that we're opening, all these little places, and they'll have signs going Botox, injectables, 4 for $150 or something. And I go like, oh, that's crazy to me.
Yes.
I'm saying that's crazy to me because, what do you know about that person or that company or the person who's doing that? And that's working with your face.
You don't. And I hate to, be cliche, but you get what you pay for. And, if you're going to go to a place that is very low cost in fillers and injectables, clearly the person who's doing it is not going to be that expert with years of experience. Yes. And so, I'm not saying that everybody who is doing that would not give you a good result, but when you look across the board, you're going to be much safer in the hands of somebody who has the training and experience, and probably is not going to be the lowest price.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also, Margot, as a doctor, are you taking the person's health as a whole into account? You're not just looking at the areas that they want injected, but their skin and their body as a whole.
There's a big difference between injectables, Botox and fillers, and doing cosmetic dermatology, which is a huge range of things, lasers and different types of technology and peels and so on. And so what we offer as dermatologists, cosmetic dermatologists, is an entire range of services, a large investment in technology and training and so forth, versus such a place where they do injectables only. So, sometimes the problem might be better treated with a laser than with an injectable. Yes. Sometimes you need a peel, not an injectable. So, the more you have in your toolbox, the more options you can give patients, and you're not, I don't know if this is an expression in South Africa, but I think if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So,
that's an excellent saying. I think I'm going to use that, Margot.
Okay. So, if all you do is injectables, then that's the only thing you can offer people. Whereas I do think there are a lot of times where, maybe something else is actually more important than a line. Maybe they have terrible sun damage and a lot of blotchiness. One of the things I like to tell patients is that there was an interesting study in patients who had a lot of sun damage and a lot of brown, kind of muddy pigmentation, and they took the pictures of their faces and then they computer edited out all the pigmentation, and they just had people grade them as to their age. So everything else about them was the same, other than the pigment was gone in one picture and it was their normal picture. So I say, guess how different the age, rating was. So you can tell me, what's your guess?
I would say at least 10 years. Sun damage is huge.
So it's 12 years. So wow. I have patients who are in that situation. We come and we talk about fillers and Botox and this and that. I say, but you know what? If I do nothing else for you, if I don't take away any wrinkle, but we just brighten up your complexion, make it nice and even, and get rid of all that pigment, 12 years. Just that. Yeah. So, you have to be able to put everything in context. And also, people don't have unlimited budgets. So you also have to prioritize what is going to give that person the most impact. Maybe it's not Botox. Maybe it's a laser treatment. What is the thing that's going to really give them the most that they're going to see right away? So that's another consideration.
Yeah, I love that because what you're doing is you're treating the person as a whole. You're understanding where he or she is at, and then making sure that you're customizing that treatment for them so that they walk away feeling better about themselves and feel like they
Right.
got what they wanted.
And to your point, as a dermatologist, you know, there's a crossover between our medical treatment and our cosmetic treatment. If you have rosacea and you
Yes.
have redness in vessels, then you might also want a laser treatment to remove them. If you have acne and you have acne scarring, we might do a radiofrequency treatment to help with that. So as a medical doctor and taking care of medical dermatology patients as well, there is a synergy between being able to offer both the medical treatment and to
Yes.
recognize when somebody needs medical treatment, as well as to give them options for cosmetic improvement.
That's amazing. Margot, that's amazing. Yeah. So thank you so much. So where can people find you?
So we're in the Philly suburbs. Springhousederm.com is our website. And if you're in the neighborhood, we'd love to see you. You can actually book appointments online now. So we're trying to make it very convenient for people.
Awesome. And Margot, I know you used to come into the city frequently. Are you doing that anymore? Or are you planning on doing that going forward?
I had done it a little bit during COVID. People are starting to request more, so hopefully we'll be restarting that soon.
Okay, so then they can just connect with you through Instagram or through your office
Absolutely.
to find out when, right? Okay, that's
Absolutely.
amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate
so much fun.
just coming and sharing your expertise, and hopefully we can have you on the show again and talk about all different skin concerns and things. So if you're watching for the first time, this is Tracy Gold Show. You can follow us on Instagram. This is where all the interviews happen. They happen live on IGTV at 1 p.m. EDT time, Tuesdays to Fridays, except for next week. We're not doing Friday because of Memorial Weekend, but we have a great lineup coming up. So feel free to just follow, and then you can hit that little bell. It's a new thing on Instagram now. You can hit the little bell that will notify you when you go live. So thank you so much, Margot. Thanks for everybody for watching. And
Thanks for having me.
Any questions for Margot, just put them in the comments, and you can just tag her and she'll be able to respond. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a good day. Bye-bye.